You're listening to Zack, Psioda, founder of WorkingJoesRoundtable.com, and this is the Working Joes Podcast. Hello everybody, this is Zack Psioda, aka Working Joe. This is our Working Joes Podcast, and the podcast is going to change here. You guys hopefully listen to the Cowboys of HVAC, that's me and John Israel. Every Monday morning at 7 a.m. we release a new podcast. And now, I think every Friday at 7 a.m., there's going to be a new Working Joes podcast. And I'm going to take this podcast up a notch to where it was before. The podcast started out just sort of my thoughts on things. It lasted 10, 20 minutes. I know I interviewed Craig from Field Piece at one point. And you know what? I wanted to pursue that a little bit more. I know the Cowboys podcast, we have in-depth interviews. We just interviewed Bill Spahn. We have some more great interviews coming up here real soon. And I want to sort of do that same thing on my personal interest on this podcast. So we're going to get some people in here and talk to them about a variety of subjects. I'm going to do my little spiel here at the very beginning, and then we're going to get into our first ever guest in this new format, which is going to be Ralph Wolf. So a good buddy of mine. We're going to talk to Ralph on 3 episodes, actually, about a variety of subjects. Dealing with ICP, we're going to talk compressors, we're going to talk zoning, we're going to talk a whole bunch of stuff, and it's going to start tonight here in a few minutes. If you catch next week and the following week, we're going to have part 2 and part 3 of this interview, but it's always fun talking to Ralph because we've been buddies for a long time, so there's a little bit of tomfoolery, but also hopefully a little bit of learning and a little bit of HVAC back and forth that everybody can enjoy. But before we get into that interview, I'm going to talk for just a minute about some of the fun service calls I did on Friday. Friday was a long day. I didn't do a ton of calls. I did 3. But for me, it's a lot like Ralph, actually. Some of the calls can be rather spread out. So the first call I did was for a guy named Sam. And this call was about 35-40 miles from my house. So I drive into Wilmington. I'm driving downtown, going through the downtown area, going to the south side of Wilmington. I get to his house. Check out my system. My system downstairs has been running a whole lot. Okay, no problem. Check upstairs and down. These have been on videos before. If you guys remember, if you watched me on YouTube these last few years, there was a particular reversing valve, and some of you will know what this is. I know it sounds kind of vague, but there's this reversing valve that someone brazed in with like a Bic lighter or something like that. Or one of those plumbing torches from Lowe's. It was just horrible. There was crap all over it. We call it rat turd. In the business we call it that because it looks like it's just the solder is not fully melted. It's globbed on. Of course it was leaking. I repaired that. And it was a Train XL 1400. And believe it or not, that unit actually ran fine. It's ironic. It is the big unit for downstairs. I went and took a look at it. I put my gauges on there, and the suction pressure was 17. Of course, target pressure would have been closer to 70. So obviously there was an issue there. I crawled into the crawl space, and I looked down there. It was an old air handler from, I think, 2000, so it was about 17 years old. And I took the leak detector out, which was the Inficon Detect Select, is what I'm using right now. Opened up the door to the coil, and on the top of the coil it rang off pretty loud, pretty quick. I do miss having my H10. It's been broken for a long time. I am not a rich man, so I have not repaired it yet. I do want to, but I have the Detect Select in the meantime, which is a good leak detector. It found this leak pretty fast. It tends to find R22 leaks really well. So the coil was shot. And when you have a coil that's shot made by Train, you have now signed up for a major investment. So I told them the story, what was going on, how much I thought it would cost, and I had to confirm it. People always ask me, how much it's going to cost? I said, well, I can't tell you for sure, but I can just tell you what similar coils have cost in the past. It may be more, it may be less. I always hate when people ask me that because I feel like I'm signing up for some kind of permanent responsibility for that number. But I try to give as many disclaimers as possible. I talk to people, I said, well, it's going to be at least a couple grand. So I tell you that right off the bat because they're expensive. And more than likely it's going to be higher than that. so the people get a little bit of sticker shock, because it's not the same as changing a Goodman coil where it could be half of that, because the Goodman coil costs 1/3 or 1/4 of what the Trane coil cost, for better or for worse. So that guy elected to have a new system. So okay, that's one down. It's already sold a new system, great. The next one was a guy named Rob. I drove about 25 miles in a different direction, up to Hampstead, North Carolina, which is on the way to Topsail Beach, Holly Ridge, going toward Jacksonville from Wilmington. Took a look at his systems. He said his systems hadn't worked in years. He said one of his systems never worked. He thought the heat strips didn't work, and he thought the other one was out of gas. Well, the one he thought the heat strips weren't working and hadn't worked in a while was a Trane also, but it was like an XL 1200. It was a 12-SEER unit, and it turned out it worked fine. Refrigerant pressure was good. I took him up in the attic. He followed along with me the whole time. And it doesn't really bother me. You know, some homeowners are really into what we're doing. I don't know why. Because when I go to the mechanic, I could really give a crap what he's doing with my car. He'll talk to me just like I talk to other people. And he'll be like, Mr. Psioda, we had the conductor valve wasn't lining up with the sprocket injector. I'm like, hey, is the car finished? You know, I'm just like all these other people that, you know, seem uneducated. That's exactly who I am at the mechanic. So when I have a guy that's actually tailing me around, asking all these questions like he's a student in the class that I'm teaching, it throws me off a little bit, because sometimes I'm sitting there trying to think and he keeps talking. And I'm not like one of the guys like, beat it, you know, like a Steve Labs, like, get out of here. I'm too nice. I guess I'm too nice. Well, that'll be news to some people. But his Trane system was fine. The heat strips ran. I took the doors off. Put my amp clamp on the heat strips. They came on and off. Refrigerant pressure was good. So I really have no idea what he was talking about. He did switch his thermostat out, so maybe he cured the problem when he did that. Who knows? Now, he was right about the poor Janitrol in the back. Janitrol was from 1994, and it was flat on gas. There wasn't a single bit of gas in that unit. Whatever pressure came out of that line was just because it was hot that day. So it needed a new evaporator coil. So he says. This is another pitfall right here. The guy says, my unit needs a new evaporator coil. The last guy that was out said it did. Well, the last guy was out in 2013 or something. So it could have 12 other problems by now. And I try to communicate that too. He's like, no, you don't need to look for the leak. It's fine. Just give me a price on the evaporator. And I look at the guy, it's like, you know, if I change out this evaporator and I fill this thing full of refrigerant and it doesn't work, you still have to pay me that money. He's like, sure. I'm like, okay. Tread lightly. Get it in writing. So that one got finished because he didn't want to look for a leak. He just wanted a price on the evaporator. So I actually called him later with the price on the evaporator. Switch out. And change it over to 407C. Last call of the day. Lady named Barbara. Barbara was a special case. She was emotional. When she called me the day before, she called me and said she had no cooling, and it was, I don't know what she said, but the gist of it was 100 million degrees in her house, and she was going to die. She was crying on the phone with me, which is, it's strange to me. I have a difficult time comforting my wife when she's crying. So some strange woman calls, and I'm just holding the phone away from my ear, you know, kind of shrugging my shoulders. Like, it'll be okay. It's like, I don't know. So I told her I couldn't come out the next day, and she's like, oh, okay. So I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but just that was the case. So I went out there the next afternoon, and her Nordyne heat pump wasn't running. The compressor wasn't running, but the fan was. So I said, well, maybe it's the run capacitor. We get out of this thing easy. Well, I wasn't so lucky. The run capacitor was good. I looked down inside the top of the unit, and I could see, I believe it was the common wire burnt hanging off the compressor. So at this point, it could either go not so well or extremely bad. The not so well was that I needed to get a term lock or a quick lug and repair the terminal wiring connection. The really, really bad would be that it burnt off the terminal, or the terminal had ruptured. either releasing all the refrigerant, or at the other end, it could have just burnt the terminal off where there's no way to make a repair. There's no stub to hook on to. Term locks and quick lugs require at least, half an inch to 3/4 of an inch, however long those terminals are, so that you can make them work. If the terminal gets burned off, you're just screwed, basically. But it didn't blow the charge. There was refrigerant in the machine, and I was able to fix it, but not before I had to return to Wilmington to get more term locks, because I'd used them all. Now, the problem was here that it had gotten to be around 5 o'clock, and I was leaving Wilmington going to a little town called Leland's, where Barbara lived. And to get into Leland, you have to take 7476, Highway 7476. And around 5 o'clock, that turns into a snail race, because no one can move because of all the traffic leaving town. Now, it could have been a whole lot worse. I got stuck on the bridge, Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. It's always tight that time of day, that in the morning. I got to Johnstone in time. Good old Gary from Johnstone and Wilmington. You ever go to Johnstone and Wilmington, go to the service counter? Gary's the man. He's the man you want to see about anything. I was like, Gary, you got any, quick lugs, term locks, something like that? They actually had both. I got my term locks with a little Allen wrench. Headed back across the bridge. It wasn't too awful bad. I got stuck a couple times. Got back over there and wired it up. And I said, ladies, because it was the lady and her daughter. I said, ladies, this could go one of two ways. I could wire this thing up, throw the breaker on, and she could fire up and run like a champ. Nice and cool. No need to cry. Or it could go another way. I hit that breaker. There's some electrical noise, a little bit of a light show, maybe a mushroom cloud of freon, and that unit's done for. And of course, this lady's hanging on every word. She's like, "Oh, please don't let that be the way it happens." I'm like, "Lady, it ain't up to me." Okay, it's HVAC gods in control now. So I throw the switch on, and lucky for Barbara, it fired up and ran just fine. For how long? It's anybody's guess. Hopefully it's still running by the time you guys hear this podcast. But that was my service calls on Friday. A lot of driving around. Lucky enough to repair one of them out of 3. The first one needed a change out. Second one was just sort of confirming that there was a major problem with one, and the other one actually checked out fine. So we'll call it 2 out of 4. It's batting 50% on Friday. So that's my spiel, my service calls for that day. But like I was saying, we got Ralph Wolf in the house, and we're going to interview him. We're going to have a little talking back and forth, talk about a variety of subjects. So without further ado, let's get down to business.
So what are we going to talk about there, Zach? We got several topics that we could talk about.
Well, yeah.
Remember, I went on the tour of the Carrier plant.
Yep, there's the ICP Carrier tour.
Yeah,
because they're different.
Yeah, big difference. They're so different you can't even tell which one's being built as it's going down the line. That's how different they are.
Well, go ahead and give us a walkthrough of what you experienced while you were there.
Well, I kind of had a expectation on my way that I was just going to the ICP plant tour.
Right.
In the back of my head, I always knew Carrier and ICP were exactly the same thing. But, I get invited to go to the ICP factory. I'm thinking that's where I'm going. And I pull up. I'm going to even just stop calling ICP, and I'm going to stop calling Carrier. I'm just going to call it United Technologies.
United Technologies Incorporated, so UTI.
Yes. So when you pull up, the sign says United Technologies.
Yeah.
It doesn't say Carrier. I mean, there's a Carrier logo and a Bryant logo at the bottom of the sign. And then, so you go in there and in the lobby, and all you see is just Carrier products. Carrier, and it's the only one they didn't have was a pane. They didn't have a pane sitting there, but they had Bryant, Carrier, ICP, and they didn't have the 5-speed there. you know, on their little display.
Right, but they had 4 units I saw in your picture.
Mm-hmm.
So there was Bryant carrier. Was there 2 different carriers?
I think there was. There was like the Infinity.
Because I saw like the
Yeah.
Heil looking one that was there.
Yeah, yeah. The mainline ICP and the Infinity was there.
Yeah, very nice. Did you learn anything else about inverters while you were there, or was it just kind of a general purpose
No,
tour?
it was a general purpose tour. I will tell you that I really wanted to talk to the controls guys, the controls engineer, but just didn't get a chance. That was one of my main reasons for wanting to go on the tour. Because, you know, once you've been on one factory tour, you've been on pretty much all of them. You know, because how much building of equipment, you know, are we really going to see?
Right. Well, I've never been on a factory tour before.
You need to go, because it really will. I was really impressed with the tour itself. I mean, just the cleanliness of the factory, the paint booth. This thing was huge. Just the paint booth. It was pure white inside. The walls, the ceiling, the floor wasn't. I think it was gray. But the 2 people that were working in there, they had on white Tyvek suits, and they had on. It reminded me of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It reminded me of Willy Wonka's factory.
Was it that surreal walking around in there?
Yes, it really was. The 2 people in there, they was dressed all in white. They reminded me of the Oompa Loompas. I expect them to break out in song and dance.
That would have been great.
It would have, because you had all the top and the base pans floating up in the ceiling, you know, just running, waiting to go into the paint booth.
You said it was like It's like a football field large, that big? How big was it?
It was huge, man. It was 980,000 square feet.
Just that area, or the whole factory?
No, the whole factory was.
I was about to say, good grief, that's huge.
Now the paint booth was huge. And of course, there was 2 different paint booths in there, but you know, they had two presses in there that pressed the base pans and the top parts. $25 million a piece.
Now, you told me something about those presses. What'd you tell me about them?
They were 35. The foundations were 35 foot in the ground.
Wow.
And 30 foot. They were 30 foot high. You know, from the floor up to the ceiling, 30 foot high. So that's, you know, 65 foot from top to bottom, pretty much.
And you said something to me about they shipped them separately because they didn't want the liability of having them together.
Yeah, they
right?
shipped them. Yeah, they shipped them on 2 different ships, because if the ship was to sink, they wouldn't have lost, you know, both of them. At least they would have had one.
That's amazing.
So, you know, what I came away with from the factory was really something that you know, the people that say, you know, there is a difference between carrier and ICP. Well, no, there's really not. The refrigeration circuit is the same. Yeah, the blade may be different on carrier's higher end stuff, but their regular performance or comfort series is the same stuff. You couldn't tell. Like I said, the refrigeration circuit is identical.
The exact same line it comes off of?
Exact same line.
Wow.
Like I said, when you're walking through there, you can't tell what's being built until the very end when they put the label on it.
Well, that's amazing. It's just the different colors and different tops, I guess. And that's
Yeah,
the difference.
yeah. It's just because the coils are identical, the compressors are identical. And I will tell you this. I don't know if I told you or not, but when they're brazing the units from the compressor to the valve, they are not using nitrogen.
Well, I'll be darned. Somebody's been lying to us.
They can't use it. I mean, it's a closed system. And I'm like, well, wait a second. That valve's got to be open because they got to put Freon in it. Why can't they run nitrogen to it while they're brazing it?
Wow, that is something.
But yeah, so yeah, they're because I asked them, because I watched them, because that's one of the, let's see, the first thing that happens, of course, is the base pan gets put on the line, the compressor gets put on the base pan, and then the woman comes along and she fits the the suction line and the discharge line to the valves, and then it goes through, and then people screw the valves to the base pan, and then after that goes through, the next step is the brazing process for those two lines. And I asked them as we were walking by, I said, "Hey, she's not brazing with nitrogen." No, it's kind of a closed loop or closed system. It's hard to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, that's what I'm going to say on the job site. It's a closed system, man. It's hard to do this.
Yeah.
Nitrogen's heavy.
But now the coil, when the coil gets sent through there, of course it hadn't been bent yet when they're building it, and then so the trench that the coil goes through is 10 foot deep. So that long coil, it just gets, it's hooked on the metal ends,
right?
And it's so as it goes through there, it's so it stays the same height all the time. But in the very beginning, it is getting a nitrogen wash, kind of like nitrogen is going through it.
Well,
so
I would ask you this, Ralph. When you came in, you felt a certain way about the product. Did it change any while you were there?
No, I actually feel better about selling ICP, because I can honestly tell people that there's no difference between Carrier and ICP. I mean, I always knew there wasn't, and I always told people there's no difference. It's the same thing. But now I can actually, after seeing it, I can say, no, it's the same stuff. It's identical. There's no, just like American Standard and Train.
Right.
Even though they're the same, you just, unless you've been to the factory, they're, it's not really the same, but they are.
To call Larry and ask him, are they the same? He'll go, yes. And then you'll say, okay.
Yes, they're the same. They're identical. Identical. And so, I had a lady last year. She had to have Carrier, and I was like, I told her, I said, there's no difference between ICP and Carrier except for a little price difference. And she's like, well, I don't care, And to me, it cost me $300 more for Carrier,
right,
than it does for ICP, and so I charged her the difference. But at the end, I told her, I said, you just paid for nothing. Nobody cares about that air conditioner outside their house. When somebody's buying a house, they don't care what's cooling it. The only people that care about it is when it's getting replaced. And, you hear, oh, Train,
yeah,
you hear the major names, and that's, like John was talking about, the guy demanded Train because he just had to have it.
Yeah, some people do.
Same with you. Try to get them to buy American Standard and wouldn't do it.
Yeah, because they're different.
Yeah.
And you can't explain it to them. I mean, sometimes there's nothing you could say. I mean, because there's no factual based argument going against you. So.
Well, I have that picture of the lobby, and so when somebody says, what do you sell, and I said, well, let me show you what I sell.
That's exactly. Hey, well, when you were on the line, were they putting Emerson compressors on there?
Yeah, Copeland. Yeah.
They were all Copeland?
Yeah. Oh, I got to, I listened to the podcast when Larry Cole was on, and what I was told was that, they can't really keep up. Copeland really can't keep up, so you might have a LG in there versus a Copeland, and part of that was Copeland was trying to tell Carrier kind of what they were going to do versus Carrier saying, hey, you need to do it like this. So Carrier was pretty much like, well, you're not the only guy on the lot. We can use somebody else.
The funny thing is, Larry says that the LG compressors don't do well in the Southwest. I wonder if they direct certain units to certain places. If they get an LG compressor, because I've gotten plenty of them.
Yeah. Now I had LG. I had a Linux that I replaced the compressor on, and then it was a replacement. The compressor that I replaced was had already been replaced. I put the third compressor in this Linux, and I told them at the store when I said, look, I'm going to go find out why this is a third compressor, out of this unit. I said, don't even waste your time. It's a LG compressor.
This is what they said.
So, yeah, that's what they told me. They had a ton come back, and this has been 3 years ago, I believe.
Well, that ain't good.
So I'm sure that problem got straightened out.
Well, I hope so.
That
I mean,
problem
guys,
got
you know, there's different guys say I haven't had any problem with LG compressors, but other guys say they're the worst thing on earth. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't had any issues with them at all.
I haven't had any issues except for that one, and that was on a foreclosure house that I was. So I don't know any of the history.
Wow.
I just got sent over there. You know, it was a management company that I was doing work for.
And they were taking a foreclosure and gonna resell it, or how was it working?
Well, no, it was I'm sure it was a foreclosure before, and then the new owner used this management company.
I gotcha.
So you know they had a renter in there.
Well,
so I didn't know any of the history.
Well, if it was renters, I figured they might have put it through hell and it just, you know, not change the filters and stuff like that. Because it's pretty nasty
no, it
stuff.
wasn't. It was just that compressor.
Yeah. Just LG. Emerson still be there, huh?
Yep. They're still beating them out. You know, I think Copeland, as far as the variable speed stuff, has a way to go.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, they got the scrolls down pretty much.
Well, I was watching some videos the other day trying to become more intelligent about Copeland compressors, and I saw there was two different ones. One they used for commercial, that was the digital scroll, and it had some sort of like little bypass on it that would bypass gas and cause a valve to move, and it actually would stop pumping for a certain amount of time, and then it would pump for a certain amount of time. Like for 10 seconds, it would pump for 2 seconds at 20% load, and then it would be unloaded for 8 seconds. So I said, well, this is not the one they use in residential, evidently. This is just a commercial thing.
Know.
So
right.
The other scroll is a variable speed scroll, just like other rotary compressors they use. It ramps up and down.
Right.
It doesn't just unload and load.
Well, you know, the one that I don't know why the manufacturers aren't trying to use is Danfoss.
I don't see any Danfoss unless I have to replace a York compressor. Then they'll give me Danfoss.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why Danfoss doesn't have a bigger market share than what they do.
Yeah, I used one of their scrolls. I mean, it was fine. I mean, I don't know. It could have been broken by now. I don't do the work at that was at McDonald's.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why they don't. Because they seem to me that nothing wrong with it.
It would be nice if someone made a compressor besides Copeland, so there was some sort of
because they have the whole market share.
Yeah. Because evidently they make the train one. So I mean, if they make the train one, 95%, 100%, whatever, but they're basically making it. So the only other compressor is LG, and evidently they're horrible. So it'd be nice to have another quality compressor.
Well, when the LGs that I put in, as far as the units with LGs in them, I haven't had any problems with them.
No, me neither. I mean, I haven't had any issues yet, but I don't put in a ton of units, but I've had a handful of LGs, and some of them are a few years old now. So I mean, no issues yet.
Yeah, to me, I don't care as long as it spits out cold air. That's all I care about.
That's what the people care about. Most of them. Some of them get wrapped up into other stuff.
Yeah, the brands and all the other stuff. But like I said, as long as it cools, then I don't care really what's in it, as long as it continues to work.
No, I mean, we set units. Goodman had not rotary. Well, some of them were rotary compressors, but a lot of reciprocating compressors.
Who was I talking to about the? It was Chuck the other day. Said he had to put in a compressor, and I thought that he said rotary. I don't know where I got that from. I said, "What are you working on? The value series Goodman?" Because on the value series, 1.5 tons and 2 tons, I believe, you might get a rotary compressor in there. You might get a Panasonic compressor.
Is that what it is? Panasonic.
Yeah, Panasonic rotary compressors in some of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you might get, if you're putting the value series stuff in, they just put whatever compressor they have. It's not, well, that unit's supposed to have a Copeland in it. No, it could have a little rotary compressor, and really what's nothing wrong with a rotary compressor.
No, I mean, Basically, window air conditioner, mini split, rotary compressors. You use
Yeah,
probably more of those than any other compressor.
Yeah.
All across the world.
Mini splits. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's one in your kitchen right now.
Say what?
There's one in your kitchen right now.
One in my kitchen? What are you talking about?
Yeah, in your refrigerator.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't think about the refrigerator. Hey, you got speaking of this, everybody,
Yeah.
Ralph has the greatest refrigerator ever built. Isn't your refrigerator Wi-Fi?
My refrigerator has Wi-Fi. Don't use it, but it's Wi-Fi.
Explain to these people why you need a Wi-Fi refrigerator.
Oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's a little overboard. But actually, all it is it talks to the power grid.
Oh.
If you're, so it'll talk to the meter if you have it set up.
I wonder what they talk about.
The power company can turn it off if they want to. Pay your bill, sucker.
Yeah, well, I saw a refrigerator on TV where the door
is
opaque, and then it becomes clear, and you can see what's inside. That
That you can do your shopping list from your refrigerator.
That is kind of crazy. I mean, I have no desire for that. I like the $400-$500 refrigerator. That's fine with me.
Eventually, all the products will have like little RF tags, and the refrigerators will be able to read those tags, and then it'll send it to your phone when you're out of something.
That's just crazy. It makes sense though. I mean, it's like that. Like when I first found out about Ecobee thermostats, and if you use their thermostat, I forget which one it was. It's not the Smart SI. It's the other one, the one that came before the 3.
Right.
It has like a board that goes with it, and it'll send you emails if the float switch is tripped, or I don't know, it has some dry contacts on it. You can do whatever you want with them. It'll email you. So it's pretty neat.
Crazy.
I mean, I never got to use it.
Right.
But my SI still emails me whenever I need to change my filters or the humidity's too high or something like that.
Yeah, I sold my Ecobee to a guy when I put this system in, the inverter.
You sold the Ecobee 3? Is that what you had?
Yeah, I sold the Ecobee 3 to a customer.
Oh, cool. Take my used tech off my hands.
Might as well.
Well, your inverter, you had some issues with it. Did you get them straightened out except for the overheating?
Yeah, I got it straightened out. My issues that I had originally was when the board on the furnace was not updated. So I had an older version. So like August of last year, they had a certain board in it, and it wouldn't talk to the zoning correctly. So after August, they had changed it. So the furnace I got was pre-August. So I had to change the board. So there was a communication issue there. I couldn't see the CFM on the thermostat.
Oh, so you can now?
I can now, yeah. And then when I first put it in, the temperature setting was going up and down, up and down. It would be like at 74, then it would be like 78 and 72, and it would do all kind of crazy stuff. So I took it back and got another one, and then it wouldn't. I can't remember what it was, but there was something there it was not seeing, and so I took it back and got another one. So I've had 3 thermostats.
Wow, and this is the Observer, correct?
The Observer, yeah. So but this one here is fine.
Third time's a charm?
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you have a thermostat and then zone sensors, or how does it work?
I have a sensor in my bedroom.
Okay. And then you have the Mitsubishi in the other area, right?
Then I have a Mitsubishi in the room that's used to be a carport. But in the summertime, I turn my zoning off. I don't even need it.
So it just uses the master stat if you turn it off?
I just use it. Yeah, you can turn the zoning off at the stat.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
And so my zoning, I have it zoned in the wintertime, but in the summertime, the way it works, I don't need it.
Well,
so I went from needing zoning, because all ranch houses, there's no good place to put a thermostat in a ranch.
You're right. I live in a ranch myself.
and there's just no good place. I mean, when we first moved here, my thermostat was in the hallway, dark hallway, no returns, no nothing. It was just sitting in the hallway, and then so I changed the system out and did zoning, and I moved the thermostat from the hallway to the living room, and then put one in the bedroom, and then that worked okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm really waiting for us to get in the 90s, because right now, you know, being in the 80s, my air is running, but I get a email from Georgia Power every day. It tells me how much power I've used, and so for the last couple of days, I've been using like $2 a day.
Wow. You know what?
Yeah.
I really would love to have an inverter these last few days, because it's been 85 with 70% humidity, and inside it's overcooling all the time, because the stat will overcool up to 3 degrees to dehumidify, and it's always like 69 in my house with a 55% humidity.
My thermostat right now, I can see the temperature setting, and it's 75. I can't see the humidity, but I'm sure it's like, I'll get up and look right quick.
Well, you might as well. You're mobile. Ralph is mobile, people. He's on his phone.
I'm on my phone. Yeah, I'm on my phone.
I am fixed location.
I'm 50% humidity. I'm set for 76 degrees, but it's 75 in the house.
Nice.
And I'm comfortable. Actually, it's almost a little too cool in here.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, you've had the inverter for a while. You've got the zoning. Do you think there's any scenario where someone should zone with single stage any longer?
If you're going to zone with single stage, that's a great question.
That's why I'm here, Ralph.
The thing about zoning is bypass.
Right.
If you don't have your bypass right, and I know there's some guys out there that don't use bypasses, and I wouldn't do it, because on a smaller zone, you're just going to blast that zone.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm gonna pitch something out there right quick. EWC now has a static pressure control bypass, and the nice part about this bypass is it keeps a constant ½ inch of static on the system. So let's say you have just a single stage system that's not zoned. That's not, you know, the return, it doesn't have enough return, it's shy on return. You can actually use that bypass to correct your static pressure.
So you're saying that is that they say to do that?
It's brand new. They've been working on this thing for 8 years.
Is this like Honeywell's, or is it different than Honeywell's?
No. They will call a Honeywell a jack in a box. With that little crank. It's like a jack in a box.
I'm gonna call it that from now on too, actually.
Yeah, give me one of them jack in a box dampers. But that thing is child's play. It's, you know, you set it for a ½ inch, but it really doesn't know if it's a ½ inch or not. You know. Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, none of Honeywell's stuff is ACA approved or ACA compliant for zoning.
But I'm guessing EWC is.
EWC is.
Is it the only one?
Everything that they. Yeah, it's the only zoning system out there that's ACA compliant.
Oh no, my Eco J's.
Oh man, yeah, but no, I went to a class not too long ago on that new static bypass damper they have, and that thing is, it's unbelievable what it can do.
Now that's impressive, and everybody, I was working on a job about a week ago, and I had to buy a zone panel. And I bought an April Air zone panel, and I called Ralph, and Ralph I thought he was going to ream me out or something for having April Air. Now tell everybody why you were so upset about that.
Well, I really can't remember, but I do know this, is that every company out there, and you've heard me say this before, every company out there, I don't care who they are, they do something really well. But then they try to get in other parts of the market, and they really don't do too well in the other parts of the market. Aprilaire does a great job with filters and humidifiers, that kind of stuff. But zoning, it sucks. Their zoning products are awful.
Well, they gave me the wrong board. Anyway.
Yeah, they just don't. Aprilaire is the worst zoning you can almost buy.
Well, when I went to get a zoning system, I always get power open, power closed dampers just because they don't use as much energy, and the spring dampers always crap out after a while. Yeah. Because I have to work against all that force. So he said, all right, we got Aprilaire. We'll sell it to you for a great price. And it was probably, I don't know, 70% of the price of the Honeywell stuff that they sold here at RE Michael.
Yeah.
So I bought it.
There's a reason it was cheap.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I bought it and I took it back to I unboxed the dampers, and of course they were power closed dampers, spring open, and I was like, oh, damn it! I didn't want these dampers. Because I wanted power open, power closed. I was already at the job. It was 100 degrees up there. I said, well, they're getting these dampers. I didn't specify. I just prefer. But I put them up there. I got out my zone panel from Aprilaire. I opened it up, and it was for conventional gas system, not heat pump capable. So I was like, son of a gun. But it was.
Everybody else, you can use a heat pump or it'll do either one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most of them go up to like 3-2 panels or something like that, or at least 2-in-1 or something.
Right.
It was the cheapest thing I've ever seen as far as zoning. You were absolutely right, because it was, I don't know. I mean, it looked like cheap plastic, like it was going to fall apart.
Yeah. Have they? I don't know if they changed the design. Was it like the rectangle?
This was more of a square. It was almost like Honeywell's. It was like a 200 series. That's what I ended up with. A Honeywell is what the Jim Air had. So I picked that up.
Honeywell does great at stuff, but I'm not a fan of their zoning either. Although their new dampers, they've copied EWC.
Yeah, how so?
Well, with because they're lit now. EWC has lights on theirs, and now Honeywell has lights on theirs.
Well, Aprilaire
on their new dampers.
Aprilaire don't, because I was looking over there in the darkness to see if I could see the light or not, and there wasn't no light there to see.
Yeah, no, there's no light. Hey, a little trivia. Did you know that EWC used to make Honeywell dampers when they were Trelletin?
No, I didn't know that. Now, what are their dampers? The URD damper, is that Honeywell?
Yeah. Wow. But EWC used to make Honeywell's dampers, and then Honeywell said, "Well, we're going to take these back and we're going to start making our own." So EWC was like, "Oh, we're freaking out! What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And one of the guys was like, "Well, we're set up to make dampers, so let's make our own."
That seems obvious. They started making
because they were actually did a lot of transformers for the military. Stuff for like guided missiles and stuff like that.
Right.
And so they got into doing zoning. So all their stuff is like military grade. Because that's what they know how to do.
Military grade, EWC.
Yeah. Military grade, yep. But they're a great company. When you call them, you get a guy that answers the phone that knows what you're talking about. You call Honeywell, you may not get that guy.
There you go. Your call is very important to us. Please stay on the line. Dun, 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 dun,
there you go.
Dun, dun. Well, I called EWC one time. I put in an Ultra Talk panel on a split.
On the Goodman
Amana.
Communicating?
Yeah, the Amana 18 series. Communicating, yep. And I called him, and lo and behold, the phone rang twice, and the guy said, "Hello, this is whatever, EWC." I was like, wow, okay. And I asked him about it was a leaving air sensor. It just wasn't sending, I don't know what was wrong with it. It was shorted or what. It just wasn't sending back the right temperature. It would send back a temperature 20 degrees warmer than the actual temperature that was tripping the high limit. Mm-hmm. So I got a new switch. It worked fine. But I got to talk to him. Yeah. He knew right what to do. I took the voltage and told him. He said, it's bad.
Those guys over there, every one of them have been with them for many, many, many years.
Was that New Jersey? Is that where they're at?
Yeah. Yep. And actually, the guy, the service manager that goes around and does training, his name is Trey Miller. And this guy is a Vikings fan from hell. I mean, he is actually up in Minnesota. They have, the billboards with, the Minnesota Vikings billboards. And his picture, because when he goes to the games, he lives in Florida, but he's a Vikings fan.
That's the weirdest
And when
thing
he
I've
goes
ever
to
heard.
when he goes to the games, he gets all decked out. I mean, I need to find this picture so I can show you.
I hope he has a helmet
But
on.
no, he's all in purple, and his picture is actually on the billboards.
That's pretty funny.
The way he's all dressed up, and he can't do anything because once if you're in that stadium and they take your picture, it's their property.
Yeah.
Even though you're the guy. But yeah.
That's
so,
but he's on the billboard up in Minnesota. That's far away from Florida.
Yeah. See, he used to work for Honeywell, and he went from Honeywell to EWC many years ago.
Wow. So
back when EWC was built, huh?
I was gonna say you've never really been anyone but EWC, huh?
In the very beginning, I thought April Air was good, but that shows how you change in your perception of things.
Oh yeah. Well, tell you what, Ralph, that was 30 minutes of conversation so far, and my podcast usually lasts 8 minutes long.
Oh no, man!
Well, not with a guest.
It's like getting a new girlfriend.
Getting a new girlfriend. We got to stay up all night long talking.
Yep.
If I'm gonna get anywhere, we're gonna talk for 3 hours.
Yep.
And that's fun. Stay tuned next week for part 2 with Ralph Wolf. You're listening to the Working Joe's Podcast.